Hey, Coach. How has things changed for you this fall camp with as Scott just mentioned, now being the co-defensive coordinator, dropping off the special teams portion of your coaching? How has it changed for you? What has been different for you this fall camp?
Yeah, little bit less holding the microphone, obviously in special teams, running meetings, but football coaches coach football and still involved in all aspects, trying to do anything you can to help develop the players from a special team standpoint, and then defensively, everything kind of flows pretty smoothly with Coach Newberry, with Coach Lewis. It's all a pretty good deal there. So.
We were talking to Trent Gillis earlier, and he talked about you working with him on learning how to blitz. And that kind of thought to me, a lot of times we think overly simplistic, hey, just go get the quarterback. But when you are teaching someone learning how to blitz, what are some of the mechanics? What are the things that you're letting him know about? What are some of the tricks to the trade when it comes to learning something like that?
Yeah. The probably the number one thing is that when your number's called, you have to go out and you got to be disruptive. So, great ball get off is something that we stress because if you're not headed in the right direction, the right way, then the rep's probably not going to go the way you envision it going. So, obviously, a great get off, and then anything in football, you have to have a visual key. And if that visual key gives you run action, you play the run. If that visual key gives you pass, then you can play the pass and kind of, you know, the thing I enjoy most is when you get players to play with what I call progression, and they can really turn into really nice players on the field because whatever the offense is going to do to you, they have the tools in their toolbox to go out and solve the problem.
On Trent himself, what has he done from moving from, the safety room now being part of the outside linebackers? What has he done to sort of elevate his game in your mind?
Well, we always knew Trey played our style of ball on defense. And Trent was there doing that day in and day out as a plebe. And then the cool part about Trent is he goes and like if you stress a certain piece, he will go out and execute that where some guys might not, if Trent's going down the line of scrimmage and he's going to tackle a tailback. One time in spring, we always call that like a knockdown tackle, get your head across. It's one of those instances where you can get your head across in football. And like few guys kind of grasp that concept. Trent is a guy that will grasp it and then go out and demonstrate it. He's a very savvy football player who, takes really good notes. And we got a bunch of guys in the room that take really good notes and kind of hang on every word you say.
Thanks, Coach.
Yes, sir.
Scott Wyckoff.
Yeah, Coach, what kind of personality do you see this defense starting to develop now?
It, it it's getting to the point where you're kind of tired of going against the offense a little bit. It's like that part in camp where you keep looking at the same person across the ball from you, but now it's a defense where you're not going to play unless you play our style of ball, which is elite effort, attitude, and toughness. And if those aren't on display every day and that's not who you are, then it's going to be really hard for you as a player to see the field. And Coach Newberry, Coach Lewis have stressed that quite a bit. And going into year 4 of the program there, uh, that part is really refreshing because you have guys that's all they know in our entire program is that type of level of play hard. And yeah, that part for us will be the number one thing that you'll see with our defense.
What does it mean for you having arrived at the Naval Academy right at the beginning of Brian's head coaching leadership to be there with him every step of the way?
It's it's really cool, and it was kind of the first time in my career where I got to be on a brand new staff, and you're you're setting in place standards that a first year head coach wants to see on tape, whether it's offense, defense, special teams. It's really cool to kind of be a part of that very maturation process to take it from day one all the way through the years, and you go through the different challenges with, shaping a culture, maintaining a culture, growing a culture, all those things. That part has been really, really, really uh, fantastic for me to be a part of, because every every coach would think of the way that they would want to do it, and it's cool to be a part of that. As Coach Newberry's put his kind of stamp and his mold on our program.
And from a scheming and game plan type of attitude, how do you like the fact that you're going to be able to see Towson in a live game to break that down before you guys play him?
Yeah. Um, those those week zero games, we had one against Notre Dame in 2023. Um, it's it's always a little different having the week zeros, because it just seems like there's only a couple people getting to do that are fortunate enough to play early. And there's pluses and minuses to having a week zero. You might show a couple things that are new, but you're also getting out some of the, pregame jitters or first game jitters. So, it's kind of both sides of the coin as you look at it.
Thanks, Coach. Good luck.
Thank you.
Tim Nolan.
Rick, if we asked this to Trent, want to get your perspective on it. Recruiting a player like him who had the offers from a Syracuse, from a Maryland, from a Temple and Marshall and all these other schools interested, what was it like to actually get him to commit to the Naval Academy? And how have you seen that players of his caliber start to commit here with more frequency?
Yeah. Tim, you said Trent, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Trent comes from a really good program in Spalding. Obviously, shout out Coach Green. But the the cool part about it is Trent is all ball all the time. And he's all ball all the time, but he also realized that, like, at some point in your life, football will be over. And at some point in your life, you have to figure out what it is you're going to do with, like, the remainder of, like, the next minimum half of your life. So for Trent to be able to make that decision to go to the number one public school in the country, to set himself up with, like, a six-figure job for the rest of his life at such a young age, like it's a credit to his parents. With all our guys, like, every kid that comes here, usually they have one champion in their corner that's like, hey, hey, Ricky, hey, Johnny, you should do this not just for the next 4 years, but for the next 40 of your life.
And as someone who knows firsthand how difficult it is to make plays in the National Football League, how fulfilling has it been for you to see what Landon's been doing these past couple weeks?
No doubt. He's a one of one person. Just the work ethic with that kid, for his ability to strive and his ability to um, never leave any more meat on the bone for anything he does. Super proud of that guy. And when you get around his family, there's zero shock as to how he turned out the way he did. Um, Whether he's playing D line, getting 1.5 sacks against Chicago, or he's playing fullback in a goal line drill for the Bengals during practice. He's 100 miles an hour every day of his life, and he's just getting to show the world what we all got to know for the last 3-4 years.
Who's a hidden gem that you have really liked so far here in fall camp that's caught your attention that maybe wasn't on your radar a couple weeks ago?
Yeah. You got a guy, Will Miller, and Will has come on during camp. He's obviously going to be a sophomore. Um, Will and Trent and Justin Coles, all of those guys have done a really nice job at that striker position. Obviously, you got Jay Sean McClain, who is a senior leader for us, who kind of keeps the room together. And then at that Raider position, you got guys like Christian Johnson, Nolan McCamey, Job Grant, Brandon Neely. Those are guys that have all really making some nice strides. And yeah, I'm really, really, really excited to go into the season with those guys and a guy like Gavin Woods, another senior leader at that Raider position. Like those are parts that make it a joy to coach at Navy just because of the high character of the guys in the room and just their fixation to detail and their work ethic is top notch. And that's what makes it fun to come to work every day.
Thanks, Ricky.
Yes, sir.
Wags.
Ricky, your meeting room was kind of decimated. You lost the top two players at both outside linebacker positions, in Pierce and Clank at Raider, and then obviously Jackson and Kenny at the striker. Can you talk about how you rebuild those two position groups? Obviously, you move guys like Joe Grant to Raider, you move guys like Trent Gillis to striker, but can you talk about rebuilding your two positions? Because on paper, that's kind of a question mark for Navy.
Totally. One of the biggest things is just the senior leadership that was there with Jackson, Kenny, Pierce, and Clank, and Dylan Spilios. Those guys had been in that room for so long, and they were fantastic with the young guys. They were fantastic with each other. They're fantastic in other kind of position groups within the team. So that was definitely a special class. But each senior class at Navy, it's the one place I've been in my entire career where every senior class, every year, the senior version is the best version of that kid in their 4 years. Like they hit this stride. So you got a guy like Luke Lawson, who's a senior striker. You got Jay Sean McClain, senior striker. Job Grant, senior Raider. Noel McCamey, senior Raider. Gavin Woods, senior Raider. Those guys, they always want to leave it better than they found it. And Jackson, Kenny, Luke, Clank, those guys did such a good job. Dylan Spillis did such a good job. The next crop of seniors, they're not trying to like maintain it. They're trying to raise the bar. And those guys have been fantastic. Like we've had some plebe practices during camp, and those guys are always out there trying to teach the young guys and pay it forward. And that part is like such a joy. It's like every coach and every position has its sound bites and your progression that you're supposed to play with. And for those old guys to be able to recite the sound bite and make it such a priority for those young guys to learn that stuff, that part is awesome to be a part of because that doesn't happen in today's football world that often. But they just bring it every day and they really pour into the young guys.
So let's talk about the competition at each position. What's going on with Raider? I mean, would you say that oh my God, I gotta get my depth chart out.
Christian Johnson.
Christian Johnson, has he separated himself?
Yeah, he's been taking reps with the ones, and I'm always going to try to play as many guys just because I want guys to be fresh. I want guys to play hard for that standard that Coach Newberry has set of having elite eat. And you have guys like Nolan McCamey, you have guys like Joe Grant, you have a young guy like Brandon Neely. all of those players have done a really nice job throughout camp where they're trying to get themselves, including Christian, all right, ahead of that line of demarcation to get game reps.
And what about at the striker spot with Will and Trent?
Yeah, one of the cool parts is like you kind of look at it and Will and Trent are like best friends. And you see them in meetings and whether it's a team meeting, a special teams meeting, a defensive meeting, I will always see Trent Gillis, Will Miller, Brandon Ely, and Christian Johnson all sitting next to each other. And they're all in the same class and they're all competing for reps. But it's so cool to be a part of a place where guys are competing against each other, but they're also competing with each other and they're trying to make each other better. Um, I was very fortunate as a player with the Oakland Raiders, where our linebacker room, we were all trying to like be the starter. We were all trying to be the best version of ourselves, but we surrendered ourselves to our friends in the room and we really tried to help each other. And it was a really good room with not a lot of turnover for probably about like 4 or 5 years. So that part was really cool to be a part of and to see those guys being as tight as they are with each other while competing for reps. Um, that part is like a super breath of fresh air for me because I know they care about each other. And I think that speaks to the type of player that we're recruiting. And I think it speaks to the culture that Coach Newberry has established within the program.
Thanks, Rick.
Coach, do you see a little Jackson Campbell in Trent Gillis?
Absolutely. He was trying. Um, I always say there's a couple players where you have to tell them easy, Tiger. Just hold on for a second. And Jackson Campbell was a easy Tiger type guy. Um, but again, there's also another piece where if you have to turn a player up to be excited to play football, maybe that guy is not going to be able to maximize all the gifts that God gave him. But it's always easier to go to a guy and say, "Hey, let's just turn it down a notch." Like for the guys that you have to tell them to turn it down a notch, usually those guys end up becoming pretty good players. And yeah, it must be something with that 14 jersey, Strauss.
Exactly. And you mentioned Nolan McCamey a few times at Raider. I know he started fall camp at linebacker. When did he make that move? And what does he bring to the Raider position?
Yeah, Nolan's a really, really explosive athlete. He's a pretty like loose-limbed player that's kind of slippery, and we just liked his ball get off, liked his twitch. Those were parts where we're like, okay, maybe we can get him on the field to impact our team in a positive way. So that's kind of how that discussion and thought process kind of went there. So he's doing a nice job picking it up, but it's like there's guys like Mackenzie Ardwan, Davion Jones, like they're coaching him up on the sideline as he's learning on the fly, which is again just like uh it's just a joy to be around guys that care about the good of the order so much.
And then I've been super impressed with Christian Johnson, who you mentioned earlier. Tell us a little bit about him and what he brings to the table.
Yeah, so CJ, he's a pretty strong kid, heady player. Had played inside backer last year. Had some impact for us on special teams. Uh, Savvy football player out of Pace Academy in Georgia. Um, Really good kid, fit in well in our room. Um, and he's just making strides, kind of going to work every day, just trying to get incrementally better.
Thank you. Joe Miller.
Hey, Coach, as we get closer and closer to opening day here, I mean, you've been in this game for a long time. What are your emotions? Are you still a guy that is ready to go here early in the season, still excited as you ever were as a player. What are your emotions as you head towards the first game of the season?
Yeah, that something special about going between the white lines. And there's definitely a progression. No one no one reserves the right to just skip training camp and skip the off-season program and skip spring ball and skip winter workouts. Like, you got to pay the cost. And our guys are kind of right in the middle of paying that cost. We just kind of wrapped up our camp, and now we're into kind of that kind of mockish game week where you're kind of right out of camp and kind of into your game weeks and stuff like that. So they just got to keep following the yellow brick road. That's not really that shiny or yellow. It's a rough street to follow, and football is a sport for tough guys, and you got to be a tough dude to play it. But they just have to keep taking the coaching, keep being, critical of themselves, and keep following the process. And then all of a sudden, you're going to blink, and September 5th is going to be there, and they'll be prepared because the coaching staff is leading them to be prepared.
What is your biggest concern headed into week one?
The biggest thing is kind of all week ones. You want to make sure guys are communicating well, because you go from such a sterile environment that is practice to being out there in a full game situation. But that's why you do scrimmages. That's why you do mock games. That's why you do those pieces of practice that really work on all three phases of the ball communicating.
Awesome. Thank you, Coach.
Yes, sir.
Scott Wyckoff.
What's it like, Coach, being on a staff where just about every position coach you look at defensively could be in the same position you are as the co-defensive coordinator? What is that like, playing off all that skill?
Yeah, it's a really good staff of guys that have good, close relationships, and there's no egos. Guys go to work because at the end of the day, you're doing it for one reason only, and that's for the players. It's a players' game, always has been, always will be. And if you always do right by the players, you know, the game will take care of you. And we have a great staff that's from top to bottom, where guys truly, truly care about getting those players ready so they can go be the best version of themselves on game day.
Thanks a lot, Coach.
Tim Nolan.
Ricky, just one more from me. What's it like being able to bring another Eagle here to Annapolis, and what has John Lamont brought to this program?
Well, I always laugh with the inside linebackers. I said, fellas, if I have to draft one in the building to play inside linebacker, I'm drafting old 2-8 John Lamont, because I still see the rep. It was 2017. We were at Louisville, and John went sideline to sideline with Lamar Jackson, and it was like a no gain play. And I had a striker, and he lost the edge. So I'm sitting there like yelling at the striker, and all of a sudden John Lamont gets shot out of a cannon. And he's catching like Lamar Jackson, who's like as quick as a hiccup, and he's been running by us. Like, they scored 50 points on us that day. Thank God we won. But that play, I was like, John Lamont has arrived. And he's a really good dude. He's a fantastic person. The guys in special teams, the guys on defense have really enjoyed being a part of him. And it's always good when you got one of your own with you.
Thank you.
Was he ACC Rookie of the Year? Am I right on that?
Strauss, you're always right on your facts, Strauss.
I try.
Jump to Schwab or Steve Straussmeyer. I'm not sure.
Wags.
So we talked about rebuilding the striker and raider positions. We're a week or so away from the opener. How do you feel about the two positions? Do you feel, you're in good shape there?
Yeah, those guys have really embraced the process. Um, Even the guys that don't get a ton of reps, they have they've held a high standard on how we watch tape, on how we draw stuff up on the board, on how we talk, the progression that we're talking, and the progression that we want to play with. The guys have really worked hard at that, and then they will play in games how they've practiced throughout the course of camp, and they've definitely been setting themselves up. Now, there's a lot of work to be done over the next 2 weeks, but I really like the work ethic that those guys have been displaying, and the work they've been putting in has been above the line stuff. So just keep pushing that wagon up the hill, and the guys have been doing a really nice job of that.
So last year at both positions, they kind of had different guys. Kenny McSham was a bigger, stronger guy, so he kind of was better against the run, whereas Jackson, being a converted safety, might have been better against the pass. Then on the other side, Pierce was more a guy you used to set the edge in the running game, but then you'd bring Clank in as a pass rusher. He's kind of really excelled in that role. Do you see both of those positions continuing to have guys that specialize in certain things, or do you think all of the guys there are well-rounded?
You know, the the ball get off of Adam Clank was like absolutely elite. And we have guys that have that, like a Nolan McCamey has a really nice ball get off. And but those are parts like each guy has their own little bit of redeeming qualities. Christian Johnson's a really like good play strength guy. Um, I think Trent and Will and Justin Coles, they're all pretty savvy strikers that are going to be able to play both the run and the pass. And then so those are a couple pieces where those guys are trying to be adequate in both the run and the pass game there.
Last question for me. I saw that you went, along with some other members of the staff, to a Ravens practice to catch up with your friend PJ. How was that? And had you met Jesse Minter before?
So PJ and I went to high school together, and then PJ went to college with Jesse Minter. So I had met Jesse knowing through PJ. And I got there on a Friday, and PJ was decked out in purple. So our high school, we always had Purple Fridays. So I said, "All right, PJ, this thing is going to work out pretty well for you right there. You get to uh, you get to do what you did in high school, which is awesome." Obviously, had followed Jesse Minter throughout his time in college and then in the NFL, and super, super excited for PJ. PJ is one of the best coaches that I know, and for him to be able to be there with his best friend from college, and still be able to be in Maryland with his daughters being able to go to the same schools. Like, I'm really fortunate for PJ and his family that it all worked out for him.
Thanks, Ricky. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
One little fun note that I recently learned is that now that Coach Volker is not an assistant coach at the Naval Academy, he can be a sponsor, and he is currently sponsoring Ryan Brash, the third-team quarterback, also from Elder High School in Cincinnati.
Yes.
Anyone have anything else for Coach Brown? All right, thanks, Coach. Great job. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
See you at practice tonight.